7 Myths About Imposter Syndrome. Welcome to the School of Self-Worth Live. I'm Sam Osborne, the Self-Worth Guide. This is episode 131. Today, I'm reviewing a Forbes magazine article called 7 Myths About Imposter Syndrome. Let's get right into it. It's really quite interesting. I'm going to make my screen a little bigger for you so you can see what's going on. So this is written by Melody Wilding, and she is a Forbes woman, and she helps sensitive high achievers thrive in the workplace. And she's got a really good article, nice and short and sweet. So she's saying, look, there's plenty of myths on imposter syndrome going around on the internet. And she also says, look, it's a great thing that lots of people are starting to talk about it. And that's been really helpful for people to beat imposter syndrome. But she says there's some myths, and we're going to just go through these 7 myths quickly. So she says, number 1, imposter syndrome is not real, and that people should stop taking it so personally. Well, that doesn't do anything for a person if they want to overcome imposter syndrome. You can't just say to someone, don't take it so personally. It's like denying someone's feelings. So that is definitely a myth. Imposter syndrome feelings are real. Okay. Number 2, she says imposter syndrome is a mental health condition. Well, if you do a little bit of research, you can find that it is not a mental health condition because it is not in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. And that is the number 1 book in the department or the industry of psychiatry. So it's considered a phenomenon, not a syndrome, not an illness. Number 3, she says imposter syndrome only affects women. Well, she's saying that is a myth, and yeah, that it doesn't only affect women. Some of the earliest research in the 70s was had a focus on women, and yes, a lot of women can feel imposter syndrome, like it can affect them a lot, especially going into the workplace if it's male dominated, and especially with old ideas of a woman's role in society. So yeah, a woman can feel it quite strong, but they are not the only ones who feel it. Men and women, doesn't really matter your age, where you're from, your upbringing. It can affect a lot of people, about 70%. I do know from reviewing yesterday's, there was a podcast I was reviewing, and these 2 psychologists, they were talking about how students of color especially can experience imposter syndrome, especially going into academic environments where for a long time it's been a lot of white men dominating the place. So that can make students of color definitely feel like they don't belong there, or that they are an imposter trying to be a scholar. So imposter syndrome does not only affect women. Number 4, she says, and myth number 4, imposter syndrome is your fault. Ouch, right? Imagine someone saying, yeah, you feel imposter syndrome because it's your own fault. Well, it is a myth. Imposter syndrome is not your fault. It is, I believe, a combination of a lack of education around the mind, around the imagination, and around self-worth. I believe what school needs is to teach children and teenagers and college students about self-worth and what concepts they can use to help find confidence within themselves, but also what tangible things they can do on an everyday situation to build their self-worth. Aim for completion, not for perfection. That's one of the things I like to say, because a lot of imposters, they suffer in perfectionism. But I say practice makes pretty good. Don't worry about practice makes perfect. It's overrated. But then again, perfectionism is actually a good quality. If you want something to be perfect, go for it. Just don't let perfectionism stop you from starting something or stop you from completing something, which could actually be really good. Myth number 5, she says the most confident people don't ever experience imposter syndrome. Yes, this is a myth. Lots of confident people, especially Hollywood actors, people on TV, people who you think would be really confident, have admitted that they have been through imposter syndrome and still go through it. I think Emma Watson is quite known to be quoted in this regard. There's lots of actors, lots of people like that. Maya Angelou, American activist and poet. She's written 11 books and still feels like it sometimes. She still feels like people are going to catch her out. So the most confident people do experience imposter syndrome. Myth number 6, she says, imposter syndrome keeps you humble and overcoming it will make you overconfident and big-headed. That is a myth. If you overcome imposter syndrome, you don't suddenly become an arrogant, cocky person. But it does, I think, keeps you humble, and it's made me more grateful. And I've been able to thank the fact that I had imposter syndrome, because it taught me to ground myself. It also allowed me to relate to other people better. I think when we share a pain with someone, it brings us closer together. And so overcoming imposter syndrome is not going to make you feel like you're God or high and mighty confidence. That is not self-worth. That is exaggerated ego, inflated ego. When you overcome imposter syndrome, it helps you become present to what is true, to what is real. It makes you a nicer person. It makes you feel at peace within yourself. It definitely doesn't make you overconfident. Not for most people, I guess. Myth number 7, she says, the solution to imposter syndrome is awareness and positive thinking. Well, I kind of agree and kind of disagree. And she's saying here, that people just say, oh, you need to be more aware of yourself and you'll overcome imposter syndrome. I gave a presentation last night and I said, know thyself, know thyself, know thyself, know thy worth. So I really believe that if you increase or value self-awareness, that it's going to help you to realize more worth and value about yourself. So I do believe self-awareness has a big impact on overcoming imposter syndrome. It might not be the solution for everybody, but I think it's a nice big concept to start to break down what is going on inside your mind so you can understand yourself. It's a really great thing. But positive thinking, yeah, I think positive thinking is not always great. I mean, sometimes it's great to focus on the positive, right? But if you're just trying to blanket your feelings of imposter syndrome by positive thinking and you don't really believe it, it's not going to work for you. So I tend to think that what you should do is learn how to make peace with the negatives of imposter syndrome, or to say thank you to imposter syndrome for what it has taught you. So that's not positive thinking. That's reframing the bad stuff and trying to look for the positive in it. That's a much more realistic way, rather than just trying to ignore the negative and just think positively. So that's why I think she said that positive thinking is the solution, that is a myth to imposter syndrome. Great article. Check it out. It's called 7 Myths About Imposter Syndrome. I'll leave it there for you. I hope everybody's having a great day. If you want a free gift, I've got one. It's called Crush Imposter Syndrome Forever, the starter kit for bulletproof confidence. And you can get it at the links above and below, and it's on your screen right now, samosborn.com/starter kit. I invite you also to join the School of Self-Worth Facebook group. And if you remember one thing from this article, there are myths about imposter syndrome, and I guess it's just trying to teach us to get to know ourselves a little bit more, get to know imposter syndrome and how it is for you. All right, everybody, have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.